you'll find some brochures and some information on several different substances and resources. Thank you to Seaway Valley Prevention Council for providing our refreshments tonight. Thank you, guys. And I have to thank two of our coalition members who, without them, this tonight would not have happened. Sally and Kathy are in the back. Can you guys wave? Thank you so much. They have been the driving force. They are part of the committee that has put this together. So this is part. We're here tonight thanks to them. All of our coalition members are in shirts like mine. So throughout the night, if you have a question about the coalition, something that you'd like to speak to one of us about, just grab one of us. Can I also have the Prevention Council staff stand? We have Larry and Patty. Do you have anybody else? We have Chelsea and Jen in the back. They are prevention educators. So if you have substance questions, you're more than welcome to go to them as well. So a little bit about the Massena Drug-Free Coalition and why we're here tonight. Essentially, the coalition is here to implement sustainable prevention strategies that will reduce and prevent substance use among youth, the family, and the community. So we're pretty much encompassing everyone here. And our vision is to have a community committed to healthy choices. We currently have a drug-free community grant, and our focus for that grant are two substances. Although we focus on substances in general, these are not the only two we focus on. But for the grant, we have money that is available to focus on marijuana and prescription drug misuse. If you aren't aware, there is a prescription drug drop-off box in the lobby of the police station downtown. That was, in part, thanks to the coalition's, some of their initiatives. Our coalition is very data-driven. So what that means is that we don't come up with a thought and say, hey, let's just do this. Every initiative that we take is based on a need here in this community. So we're very much focused on changing the community and changing the community as a whole. And I, again, thank you all for being here, because I would assume that with you sitting here, that you all have that mission as well. We have an announcement, and this is a huge announcement for this area. One of our initiatives, we are focusing on developing a mobile app. So for your smartphone, there will be an app that will be released in mid-October. And essentially what it's going to do is be a clearinghouse for local, regional, state, and national resources for drug prevention and for recovery. So that's going to be released in mid-October, and you'll hear more about that in the upcoming month. I'm going to take a minute to introduce our chair. He's also our mayor here in Massena, but our chair is Tim Courier. He has been essentially the founder of the coalition. He's going to come up and speak to you for a few minutes about how the coalition developed and a little bit about what we do. So thank you, Tim. Come on up.
Thanks, Alicia. Good evening, everyone. Great turnout. It's wonderful. What they've asked me to do is kind of talk to you about how we got to where we are at this point with the coalition. And for me, it started way back in probably 2011, when we were starting to see the spike in criminal activity going on, some violent crime, and we had an increase in suicides in our community. So I reached out to a few people, and I have to tell you, I really thought I knew about addiction, and I really thought I knew about the drug problem in our community. But when I reached out to a few people, one was Tina Buckley at Rose Hill. Where's Tina? There's Tina. And Larry Calkins at Seaway Valley Prevention Council. And between the two of them and the people that they put me in touch with, people like Dr. Charles Morgan with Oasis, I really found out I didn't know much about addiction. I knew we couldn't arrest our way out of the drug problem, but I really didn't understand the problem with addiction and the problems associated with it that drive the crimes and those other things that happen that are associated with it. So I thank them for doing that to me. So after I reached out to them, we created what we call the Prescription Misuse Drug Task Force. And essentially, our goal there was to try to reduce the amount of prescription drugs that were being prescribed in our community, the usage, and we did a number of things to do that. We launched an education campaign aimed at our kids, aimed at senior citizens to make sure that they were locking them up and securing their medications, because we were finding in Massena a lot of those pills were being stolen from people. We got into the school, we educated the kids. We presented to the doctors and the medical providers in the community so that they understood the scope of the problem. And we encouraged our elected officials at the state level to get behind the iStop legislation. One thing that we did here in Massena that I thought was incredible, and it wasn't our idea, we actually stole it from a physician that was using it. They were using a narcotics agreement with their patients already. They were signing a contract. We got every single doctor and medical provider in Massena, every clinic, every provider to start using that contract with their patients. It was unbelievable progress we made. And we thought it was going to be a challenge, and it really was much easier than we thought. So we knew then that people in this community understood the scope of the problem. We installed a permanent prescription drop box in the police station lobby so people can get rid of their prescription pills. It's still there. It's still getting lots of medication dropped in there. So if you have unused medication, expired medication, you want to get rid of it, the police station lobby, 24/7. The only thing we ask people to do is not to put sharps in there. So if you're diabetic or needles, don't put those in there. But if you want to get rid of your prescription pills, you can do that. We started the We Care Veterans issues. We started talking to veterans. We created the We Care Walk-In Center downtown to deal with some of the mental health issues and the overflow that was going on. And we launched the We Care Response Team, which was our spiritual leaders in the community that would respond to mental health issues in our community to help people when it wasn't a crisis situation, but people needed support. And we launched assist training for suicide prevention in the community. So those are a few of the things that we did with the Prescription Drug Task Force. And then we migrated to the Drug-Free Coalition, and this was before the grant, of course. And again, which was to try to work on a broader piece of the puzzle, marijuana, heroin, and other things. And I have to tell you, the treatment providers and the prevention providers said to me, once we get a handle on the prescription drug problem, you're going to have a heroin problem in this community. And I swear to you, I said to myself, not to them, but I said, no way. They don't know Massena. I know Massena. They're wrong. They were exactly right. They were exactly right because they've been down that road. So, some of the things that we've done here with the coalition, we've needle sweeped our parks, our schools, when we were having needles being thrown out in syringes, so we took care of that. We started the Trust But Verify program where we issue free drug test kits to parents, so if they suspect their kid is using some type of drug, they can test them in the privacy of their home, and then they can make that personal decision on how they proceed with their child. Do they get them treatment? Do they get them health? Whatever is needed. We presented the school district to the staff. We saw that as a gap, so we brought some professionals in to train the school district staff. Warning signs. You know, our teachers and our educators deal with our kids on a daily basis. They see them sometimes more than we do. So giving them training so they understood the warning signs was a real benefit. And we launched the peer-delivered needle exchange program in our community. Controversial program, some, but needle exchange programs are designed for two reasons. Get needles off the street and to prevent disease. And when you look at the data, it's overwhelming. They make sense. So I'm really proud of our coalition. We have some wonderful people that are dedicated. And from my view only, I think we need three things to have a successful coalition. We need people that are dedicated to it, people that believe in our mission, and people that will work as hard as they possibly can to accomplish that mission. And without a doubt, the people in our coalition do that, and I'm so proud of them. So I thank them very much. And we have people from the prevention, enforcement, treatment, education, business, spiritual, you name it, all across the spectrum. But we're looking for people every single day. People like you that are here tonight that care about this community, care about your friends and neighbors, that know people that are dealing with addiction, that can bring something to the table that maybe we don't have, or just want to help. Please, sign up in the back if you want. Felice is right at the table there. There's brochures that explain how you can get involved. If you want to get involved in our coalition, the more people that are helping us with this problem, the better. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. We've had great support from the United States Attorney for the Northern District, Richard Gartunian, and his staff, and they're great. We are very fortunate tonight to have the Assistant United States Attorney for the Northern District, Mr. Dick Southwood. Dick?
very much, Mayor, and I want to tell you it's a true privilege to be here tonight. I feel honored to be in the presence of this group. I work for the United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York. I'm an employee of the U.S. Department of Justice. I'm a federal prosecutor. Our district covers 32 counties, including this one. And I have some special responsibilities that I've been tasked with, and among those is interacting and supporting groups just like this. And I feel especially privileged to be here today because I know that I'm in the presence of people who have saved lives. Because of the work that you've been doing here, I know that there are families that don't have to visit a grave every month, that don't live in misery and sadness because of the fine work that you're doing here. Now, I work for the federal government, which is among the larger organizations in this country, and the Department of Justice creates programs that are all over the nation. And those are fine things. And we provide funds, and we've provided some funds in the past in this region. But what I want to tell you is this: the solution to the problems that we face of drug addiction and abuse lie in groups like this. Because people in Washington, people in Syracuse and Albany can come up with programs that are one size fits all, but what it really comes down to is people addressing the problems in their communities locally. You know what the problems are, you know what the solutions are. When I listen to the mayor describe how you've reacted to local problems here using local resources, I'm truly in awe, and I do feel very privileged to be here with you. Now, my special duties that I've been given by the United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York are to support groups just like this. Our office is a prosecutor's office, and we prosecute the violations of federal criminal laws. But the Department of Justice is more than just a Department of Prosecution. We have funds and we have resources that can be used on the local level by groups like this to address your problems here locally. And what I'm here to tell you tonight is, I sit in an office in Syracuse, New York, which is about a 2.5-hour drive from here. But you're going to be seeing a lot more of me and people like me because of the work that you're doing here. It's been noticed. It's been noticed for quite some time now. Unfortunately, the problem that we face, that we all face in terms of the present situation, is a grave one. And what I want to talk about for a moment is the wave of heroin abuse that has been washing over this region, the northeastern part of the United States, and particularly upstate New York, for the past 3 or 4 years. The statistics on this are truly astounding. We've seen heroin overdose deaths double, and in some cases almost approaching triple in upstate New York. We've seen admissions for drug treatment based on heroin double in the last 5 or 6 years. And unfortunately, all too often, we read newspapers and see television reports and get reports of people that are dying as a result of heroin abuse. And these are people who are not far away. They're not people who are living in big cities. They are our friends and neighbors. They are our children, our brothers, and our sisters. And the reasons for this are as varied as the explanations are. The studies that have been done and the research that's been done has pointed most recently to the prescription drug abuse in the form of Oxycontin and other prescription painkillers, which as a result of controls that have been placed and, quite honestly, some discipline that's been self-imposed by the healthcare industry, doctors and others that prescribe these drugs, and the awareness of this problem has had the unusual and horrible effect of driving some people that were using prescription drugs into the use of heroin. And the traffickers who provide heroin are only too happy to act upon that. Law enforcement has not been without action on this. You're very fortunate to have in northern New York some very fine law enforcement officers and resources that have been employed to address this. And I'm speaking specifically in the border area here, which is a very active drug trafficking area. I'm talking about the high-intensity drug trafficking resources and the BEST team, which is the Border Enforcement Security teams that work out of Massena. These are cooperative law enforcement units that work together. The BEST teams employ both Canadian and American law enforcement officers. I've been privileged to work with them and prosecute a number of their cases. And they give us the reach and the resources to investigate and prosecute drug traffickers on both sides of the border. But as the mayor mentioned, and he's absolutely right, I've been involved in prosecuting drug traffickers for over 30 years, and all over this northern area and also in Syracuse where I live. And it is an unfortunate fact that as many as we lock up, there's always more, because the profit that drives these things is just too great. And enforcement alone, which is an absolutely necessary element of this, cannot address this problem uniquely and alone. And what it will take is a combination of this type of coalition, doing what it can to get the word out there to prevent people from using drugs and providing a path for people who are addicted to drugs to get off them. It will require law enforcement to do its part to keep the traffickers at bay and in fear of the penalties that will be imposed by the law. And it's going to take education in the schools to raise a whole generation of American young people that won't want this stuff. And I can tell you that that is not an easy task, but you are not alone in your endeavor. In our office alone in the Northern District of New York, there are federal funds that we've applied for the next fiscal year in the amount of $300,000 to support coalitions just like this. We are very confident that in the near future we're going to be given those funds by the Department of Justice. And I'm not a stranger to the Northern District of New York. I went to college up here. I've prosecuted many cases up here. I've prosecuted cases with Chief LeBrake. I'm very proud of those associations. And it's my first time appearing before you, but I can tell you with confidence it's not the last time that you'll see my face. I wish it was a prettier face, but it's not the last time you will see us. And as I said before, federal officials like myself have responsibilities over a broad range of geographic area. We cover 32 counties in upstate New York. It's a gigantic area. It's some 3 million people, stretching all the way from the Canadian border to the Pennsylvania border, north and south, west from Auburn and east all the way to the Massachusetts border. But within that area, we have come to realize that it is coalitions like this, groups of local people banding together and using and tailoring their mission and their activities to the problem here. And I'm truly amazed and privileged to be here tonight and to listen to the things that I've learned about in preparing for this meeting, coming up here tonight, because this is exactly the kind of thing that is going to get us out of this. And I can tell you, this is something that we've been wrestling with for a long time. The heroin wave that we currently have is truly awful. You know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and there was a heroin problem then. It was never as widespread or as geographically diverse as it is now. It was once a problem of the big cities, but heroin doesn't discriminate, and now it's found victims all over the place, in rural areas, in big cities, in small cities, in suburban areas. And, but I can tell you, the degree of organization that you have here, the innovation, the ideas that you've got, which are, again, tailored uniquely for this community, this is exactly what we need to replicate in other parts of our district. And I can tell you, you should be extremely proud because it's not happened everywhere. Here, you've come together and worked together as a community. That is the only way that we can truly address these things. So, you'll see more of us in the future. I hope to come up here and with the U.S. Attorney at some point and give you some news and maybe a check. I will be up here working with your law enforcement officials because while I do have, as I said, I have special duties that I've been given now to support groups like this, I'm also a federal prosecutor. And I go to court every day representing you, the people of the Northern District of New York, in federal criminal cases, many of which are up here and all across the district. And so, as your lawyer, I want to thank you for having me tonight, and it is truly a privilege to be in your presence. Thank you. $625,000 in federal money that came
that's coming into our community over a 5-year period, 5 years, right, Kenny? 5-year period, which is being administered through Seaway Valley Prevention Council. And I'm a firm believer the reason we were able to compete on the national level and to get that grant was because of the work the coalition's done so far, because we had a pretty good resume that we were able to build, so good job. A couple other people I wanted to introduce. The sheriff is here, Kevin Wills. Thanks, Kevin. And the director of St. Lawrence County Probation is here, Tim LePage. Both of them serve as advisors to our coalition. So, a little housekeeping. After the chief speaks, I'm going to introduce him. We're going to have some Q&A, so we'll have the speakers up here. If people have specific questions, we'll have a microphone. We'll get it around to you, and if you have some questions, and then we're going to open it up to the floor. So, our next presenter is no stranger to Massena or to you. He has more than 20 years of law enforcement experience here in the village. He's been our chief for nearly a year now, so without further ado, our chief of police, Mark LeBray.
Thank you, Mayor. The gray hair and balding head doesn't make enough. I got to put some glasses on to even look more distinguished. So. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the coalition's meeting. I'm honored to be a speaker at it. The coalition is an outstanding organization that really cares about this community, and I can't express enough thankfulness that they're assisting us as law enforcement officers with what they do. As the mayor said and the U.S. Attorney said, narcotics, especially heroin, is not we're not going to arrest our way out of this. I know you're probably sick of hearing that, but it's the truth. As long as there's profit to be made, somebody is going to be bringing this poison to our community. As long as we have addicts in this community, there's going to be business for those dealers to bring it. So we have to work on this in threefold. We have to work on it as a law enforcement issue. We have to work on it as a substance abuse issue to get people help and treatment that they need. And we need to stop our upcoming youth from wanting to get into this stuff. So this is why as a community we need to do this. Without all three of those components, it will fail. There won't be any way out of this. I want you to ask yourself why you're here tonight. You're here tonight because you care about your community. Or if somebody in your family's an addict, you've been a victim of crime. We want to stop this. We want to stop this from happening. Is there anybody here that doesn't think that narcotics or heroin has not affected them in this community? Because I hear a lot of that on the street. Well, it's not affecting me. It affects every single one of us in here in several different ways. Ways that you might not think of. We also want to know, how did we get to this point? How did Northern New York, a safe place to grow up, turn into a community of seeing some violent crime and heroin, something that used to be a big city drug? It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. But how we get rid of this problem is through your help. Prescription drugs played a huge role in this. I can remember being a kid, you went to the dentist and got your teeth pulled, you went home and took what? Some aspirin, some Tylenol, some ibuprofen. Well, America's become this, we don't want to deal with pain. So drug companies developed hydrocodone. So the doctors give you hydrocodone because they want you to be pain-free. And believe me, we all want to be pain-free. That's one way it started. Okay? People became addicts of the hydrocodone. And then when the hydrocodone didn't work any longer, they needed the Oxycontin. Law enforcement recognized that there was a huge prescription drug issue. We worked with pharmacies and doctors to stop that, but it didn't take away the addict. So if he can't get the prescription drug that he needs, which is an opiate base, he's going to go to the next opiate base, heroin. A lot cheaper, a lot easier to get. You don't need a doctor to get it to you. Unregistered pharmacists, I guess you could call them, or who's supplying it. Internet and technology fueled it. Where it used to be years ago, How would you find a heroin dealer from New York City you didn't know? Facebook, networking, MySpace, Twitter, all developed their own little organizations. The addicts all started talking to each other. Well, I get my stuff from this guy in New York City, and this is how much it costs me. And so they developed networks. Networks a lot like law enforcement have. But actually their networks were a lot better because they had all day long to sit on those social medias and develop contacts. Friends of friends. Try this. It'll take away your pain. It'll take away your suffering. It'll make you feel better. Make you lose weight. If anybody knows a heroin addict, they've lost a lot of weight because all they have is one thing in mind, and that's getting their drug. Why so big in the North Country? Profit. Americans are driven by greed. If I could buy a bundle of heroin in New York City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Jersey City, Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts, if I can buy a bundle, which is one dosage of heroin, for 10 or 20 bucks, but I can take that same bundle and make 40 to 60 bucks in northern New York. That's quite a profit, isn't it? That's one dosage. How they sell heroin is what they call bundles, which is a dosage, or a deck, which is 10. Some of these dealers are bringing 25 decks up with them. So you put the numbers together, 60%, 70% profit to drive. Some of these dealers are making $2,000 or $3,000 every day or every other day. So there's a huge, huge motivation for them to take the chance. Why work if I'm making money like that? So you want to ask yourself, how's it affecting me? As I'm sitting here, I'm not an addict. How's it affecting me? I'll tell you how it's affecting you. It's affecting you through groceries you buy, household needs that you buy, your car insurance, your medical bills, your hospital stays. And here's how that works. Walmart last year, $3 billion in Walmart USA only. And these aren't my numbers, these are the Associated Press numbers. $3 billion shoplifting loss at Walmart last year, nationwide. I want to see how it's affecting Massena. From February to August in Massena, they're just over $500,000 in loss. That's our little community, $500,000 in shoplifting. You think that's affecting you? Is Walmart in business to lose money? Walmart is in business to make money. So that $500,000 they've lost in Massena, how are they making that up? Every item you buy, they have to sell at a higher price. So you're paying for that. You're paying for the shoplifting. U.S. Retailers Incorporated last year estimated that in 2013, the Realtors Association that are in this, now this, I don't know how many there are total, lost $41.6 billion to shoplifting. Their study took shoplifters who have been caught and arrested, and 60% of them had a substance abuse problem. Some of them developed addictions of shoplifting because they were trying to take away the pain and suffering they were having with their family members having addiction. We see that quite often. We see that domestics and situations like that where a family member has an addiction, and because of so much stress on the family, it creates tension in the household that sometimes one of the parents or the siblings or the grandparents, they develop an addiction to try to get away from the stress that's being caused, whether it's gambling, smoking, alcohol, stealing. Okay. So it keeps a cycle going and going and going. It just doesn't stop. So that's why we need to stop this. How many people here have been a victim of identity theft? Anybody? Anybody had their credit card number stolen and used? Did the bank take care of the charges? How did the bank take care of the charges? In the last 5 years, the average credit card percentage-wise for interest has gone up 4%. That's how they make up the difference. The bank's not in business to lose money. So if they got to come up with $40,000 to cover a loss here, it's going on the backs of every one of you. We're paying a higher percentage. Even if it's a 10% or a quarter percent or a half percent, it's gone up. Because that's how the bank's making up their money. It amazed me one time, years ago, anybody remember the bus stop was on East Orby Street by Big Daddy's Pizza? I had a subject there that was creating a little bit of an issue, and we went and we got there. He had $50,000 of traveler's checks that were stolen. $50,000. I'm saying to myself, I got a great case here. Arrest the subject, take him back to the station, process him, he goes to county jail. Guess what happened in that case? He got dismissed. You know why? Because the bank didn't want to send somebody up to testify to the case that they were out their traveler's checks. Their exact words when they didn't want to do that was, we'll make it up. It was a drop of the dime to them. It wasn't worth from somebody, their company was in Atlanta, Georgia. It was not worth them to send people up here to testify to say, yes, those traveler's checks are forged and not right. They just wrote it off. So that's how it's coming back. We're paying for those. Let's go out of the car. Please, please, please lock your vehicles. You might think it's just 50 cents or 75 cents or my radio. That's a lot of work for us. We have to respond to those every day. If you lock your vehicle, chances are they're not going to get into it because they don't want the felony crime of smashing the window or something to get in. It's not worth a chance. You're paying higher hospital rates. A lot of addicts don't have health insurance, and our hospitals aren't in business to lose money. So if they're not getting paid there, insurance premium prices go up. So a Band-Aid, we've all heard the joke, why did the Band-Aid cost me $35? That's why. They've got to make that up somewhere. They're not in business to lose money. Higher tax rates. You ask how your tax rates are going up. The more crime there is, the more police services are being used, the more court appearances we have, that all raises your taxes. Ambulance are responding to more overdoses and drug-related issues on families. That's more gas, more time, more medical supplies. So if I haven't proven to you that you're not a victim of the opiate trade or the drug trade, I don't know what else I can say. Because you definitely are. It's definitely affecting you. It's affecting your neighbors. Everybody here, I'm sure in this room, knows somebody who has an opiate or a cocaine addicted family member or friend who has a family member that's that way. Look at the pain and suffering they go through trying to deal with that. And it doesn't affect just one class. It affects the poorest of the poor and the richest of the richest. Kids who have no upbringing, kids who have good upbringing. It's not a specific drug for one class or type of person. It's a poison in our communities that we need to get rid of. Lastly, if you don't think that we need to do something about the heroin addiction, CBS News reported it in 2011. America's $61 billion opiate trade directly funds terrorism. Again, that's not me saying this. This is a study by the CBS News in 2011. $61 billion trade in America, and I'm sure it's a lot more than that by now, is the #1 fundraiser for terrorism. So every time that addict uses, or every time we turn our face on it and say we don't want to get involved, that money's going across to people who want to hurt us. That's why we need to stop this. We've had people die in our community because of opiate overdose. A few years ago, the state relaxed the Narcan. Anybody here not know what Narcan is? Narcan is a substance that can be injected in the body or sprayed up a opiate overdose nose. That has a good chance of bringing them back. Several people in this community have been saved by Narcan. A couple in the last week. Some people more than once. I know one specific young man who was a good kid growing up. He had an injury, he got addicted to opiates. Couldn't get the opiates prescription anymore, so he became dependent on heroin. 3 times I know Narcan has saved his life. I want you to think for a minute. Is there anything in your life that has such a hold on you that you're willing to flirt with death? And he's done it 3 times. That's the hold that this drug has on people. Stop and think about that. Something that has such a hold on you that you've cheated death 3 times and you're still willing to do it.
Mark, this was shortly before I came here, I stopped down at the squad. There are 12 uses of Narcan since March.
All right, there's the president of the rescue squad. 12 uses of Narcan by the rescue squad since March in this town. That's 12 people that would have died of an opiate overdose if they hadn't given them Narcan. That's 12 people in our community since March that would have passed away, and their family members would have been dealing with huge suffering and losses. It's a sad drug. And how we're going to stop that is through this, through the coalition, and through your help. People ask me all the time, well, what are the police doing about it? I'm going to tell you what the police do about it. We're very active about it. Former Chief Mayor Courier started the program. I'm continuing it. Patrols are very hard working at it. Some people don't like how we do it. Let me explain a little bit how we do things. One is we put heavy patrols in high traffic areas. If we know there's a suspected drug house or somebody who's suspected dealing, we really put heavy patrols in that area. Okay? Unfortunately, I don't have all the patrols to put at every spot that I would like. We issue lots of vehicle and traffic tickets in those areas. People say to me, why are you issuing these cheesy tickets that I hear about? License plate lights, brake lights, things hanging from the rear view mirror. That's a traffic stop so we can stop and identify people. It also gives us a few minutes to interact with the person to see if, hey, is this story checking out? Should he be in this area? Why is he in this area? Is he hiding something else? Is there something in plain view that I can see? So, what you might think is a cheesy ticket, it's a fix-it ticket. They get it fixed, and it's taken care of. It's actually a very good use of information for us to do. I'm sure everybody's seen the Hummer. We have the Hummer in town. We move that around town. It has cameras all over it. It monitors the area. See a lot of things on the Hummer that people don't think we're seeing, but we're seeing it. In minor stuff. One of the things is the kids seem to want to lay on and get their picture taken, and you might call them up and say, hey, I saw you on the Hummer the other day, and they're like, those things really work? And it's like, yeah. We have cameras in town. Very useful. We strategically put them in town. Would like to get some more. They've been very useful, not only in stopping narcotics, trafficking, and trade. They've helped us a great deal with accidents. 2 people say they have a green light, and you watch the camera, it's obviously so those have helped. There's a lot of other covert operation going on, whether it's undercover work or other technology things that I don't want to discuss because I don't want to give secrets out. But just know that there is technical support being used to combat the heroin trade and to combat the cocaine and marijuana trade. We work heavily with our partners, both local, county, state, federal. The sheriff's here. We have 3 members that belong to his task force that we use. We work hand in hand with other police departments in the area. A couple weeks ago I had a meeting with Watertown and Plattsburgh. We talked about the trade, because it doesn't stop at town lines or village lines or county lines. It goes all back and forth. These players aren't just coming to Massena, they're coming to other towns also. We work with HSI a lot, Homeland Security Investigations. You say, well, why would Homeland Security want to be involved? Well, the drug traffickers going to funnel terrorism, so obviously Homeland Security wants to be involved. The best team, the Border Enforcement Security team, was comprised of on our side, local, state, federal officers. and on the Canadian side, local, provincial, and federal officers. We share information a lot. Again, just because that river is there or the bridge there doesn't mean that the crime stops as soon as it gets to that spot. Years ago, it was aliens coming south, money coming north, and then it went to marijuana going south, money coming north. Okay. Wherever there's a need and a profit, these criminals are going to develop networks to move their product. One of the things we've also done is try to take more cases federally when possible, if it meets the federal threshold. And the reason that is, especially if you can put guns and drugs together, there's higher penalties. The paper had it today, I think Ryan had it in there about problem, it's getting 25 to life. Okay. Guns and drugs just don't mix. Okay. And the feds seem to have a little step up on us on that. So if we can meet the threshold for that, we prefer to take it federally for longer sentences. Other things we do is we do school visits. Officers go into school and try to go in every day, walk through the schools, talk to the kids, speak with staff, let them know that we're there. We do organizational visits. One of the coalition members isn't here right now, Chris Flynn. He's actually speaking with the Boy Scouts. Oh, you did make it, Chris. He was speaking with Boy Scouts. How'd that go? Okay. Kids love it. Back in June, I started a program called Operation True Blue. Did anybody hear about that or not hear about it? What it was is for 30 minutes a day, or roughly on that, if officers have a break or have time, I want them out of the car intermingling with kids. Playing baseball, basketball, street hockey, fishing, tennis, stopped at the library, did story time. That's a component of how we're going to stop drugs in the future. I had mixed results on comments on when we started the program. Some were saying, well, we're not paying you to be out in the street playing with kids, or you're being paid to patrol, or my favorite one was, you're promoting crime. And I said, how am I promoting crime? Kids aren't supposed to play in the streets, and you're out playing in the streets. Give me a break. Okay, give me a break. The day before school, I'm a hockey fan, because really, Mayor, there's only one sport, and that's hockey, not basketball. So I keep a stick right in my patrol car. I keep a ball glove also, and a fishing glove. I get out and played street hockey with some kids. There was 3 of them. I got out, spent about 15, 20 minutes with them. And their grandmother come out, and she goes, I saw that on the news. She goes, I thought you were pulling a publicity stunt. I said, absolutely not. Okay. I get out and play street hockey with those kids. It was 15 minutes of my time. I enjoyed every minute of it. Those kids haven't forgot it, because every time they see Officer Flynn, they say, when's the chief coming back to play hockey with me? Okay. So programs like that are very beneficial. I remember as a kid, I grew up in Potsdam, but I remember officers getting out of the car when I was fishing at Bayside Cemetery, or if I was on the outdoor rink behind Pine Street Arena. And it meant a lot. It really did. So programs like that, I want to promote, and I want you to promote. So when you hear somebody saying the cops are out screwing around playing with the kids, I want you to say to that person, no, they're building bonds with those kids to try to keep them straight. That's how, as a community, you can help. That's one way you can help. There is a very useful purpose of that. I initially started the program for 2 months. I saw some results from it, and I decided that until further notice, we're going to keep it going. So that's what the police department's doing to combat this, besides arrest. Now I have a chore for every one of you. How can you help solve the problem? Well, one way is you can help is hear it, see it, report it. You hear about a crime, you hear about an issue, you see an issue, don't turn your face to it, don't turn your back on it. Report it. People tell us about things 3 days later, 5 days later, a week later. It's hard to pick up the spot 5 days later and go back to that crime and see what evidence is there. As soon as you see it happening, call it, report it. If you own businesses and you have people who are doing trade in your parking lots, go put the run on. Okay? I know a lot of people don't want to get involved. Well, it's not affecting me. I just told you several ways it is affecting you. Okay? How many good people aren't stopping at your business because they see drug trafficking going on in your lot? And it's going on everywhere. It's going on in the Hart Haven parking lot, it's going on in Walmart parking lot, it's going on in small businesses. But how you can stop that is when you see it, call us, or as a business owner, tell them to get off your property. Tell them you don't want them on your property. Please don't hesitate on reporting a crime. Whether you think it's a big deal or not, it could be the key that breaks the case. Some minute little thing of a car running longer than it should be could be the case breaker, okay? Don't ever feel like, oh, I don't want to bother you, or I feel stupid for calling. Don't ever feel like that. If you think something's wrong, and you know your own neighborhood's better than we do, okay? We drive around and there's thousands of people in this town, and we try to know everyone, but I don't know everybody. You may all know me, or you may all know the officers, but we don't all know you, okay? We don't know if you should be in this neighborhood or not. I mean, sometimes we do and don't, you know, people we've dealt with. But you know yourself who should be in your neighborhood and who's not. And there could be a very legitimate reason why Patty Smith has 20 cars in and out of her driveway every day. Maybe she's getting home health care. Maybe she sells trinkets on the internet. You will know that. We don't. But if you know somebody's living next door and there's traffic like that all the time and they're not having those things, we need to know about that. And just because you call and we don't get back to you right that day doesn't mean we're not working on it. Okay? How you can get a hold of us is the police department's phone number, 769-3577. You can go to MassenaPD.com for all you tech geeks. I'm not a real tech geek, but I'm trying to learn it. But you can go to our webpage. There's a tip spot. We have a tip line, and that's on the webpage. Lock your cars. Lock your houses. These people are stealing stuff out of your cars to trade for drugs. If you suspect welfare fraud, get a hold of the county, and here's why. One of the things the drug dealers were doing is police were seizing cash. They start seizing cash because it hurts them in the pocket. So they get rid of cash. So one of the things that was going on is you have a benefit card that's got $100 worth of groceries left on it. I'll give you $50 worth of drugs for it. Okay? It goes hand in hand. They have nothing to do, a lot of these people have nothing to do other than figure out how to get their next fix. That's why we need the prevention. We need them to not want that next fix. We need to stop that, and then these other crimes will stop. So that's why we need the prevention of it, and why we need the addiction counseling of it. How many people have had somebody go around to their house in the last 2 summers or so saying they're selling books or they're selling this or that? And while they're there, they say, "Can I use your bathroom?" Anybody have that happen? We've had a lot of reports of it. They want to use your bathroom because they're going to open up your medicine cabinet and see what drugs are in there for you. People call the next 2 days later and say, "My drugs are gone, my painkillers for my back is gone, and I don't know where they went." Have you had anybody in your house? If you don't know people, and we're Americans, we want to help people. I want to help people, you want to help people. If somebody wants to use the bathroom, we want to do the right thing and say, "Yeah, go ahead and use my bathroom." But there may be another reason for that. So be conscious of that and careful of that. Okay? Say, "I'm sorry," or, be nice to them, but no, you can't use my bathroom. Because that very well what they're looking for. They may be stealing money or other stuff. Okay, a lot of ladies, when you're in the shopping center, hang on to your purse. Don't leave it in your car. We've had several instances last year when somebody bends over to pick up an item and turn back and their purse is gone. Give information to us as police officers, and please, and I know this is tough because you don't want to get involved and you don't want to testify, But a lot of times, we can't make an arrest or present a case to the prosecutor if we don't have statements. So if we all stick together as a community and start showing these drug users and drug dealers that we're going to stick together as a community, we're going to take the stand, and we're going to testify against them, and we're going to give statements, they'll start thinking twice about coming to Massena because they know they're going to get arrested. If you're a victim of a crime, don't not call us because you're afraid we're going to be judgmental of you. Okay? If you've been a victim of a crime, we want to hear from you. Okay? A lot of people get swindled. Okay? We're not going to look down upon you for that. A lot of check scams are going on. I'll send you $5,000, keep $1,000 for yourself, send it back. Stuff like that's going on. And then you don't report it because, geez, I should have known that nothing's for free and I should have done that. Don't be afraid to call us on that. Look for signs of opiate or narcotic use amongst your family. Chances are there's somebody in this room whose family member is using opiates or narcotics. Look for that. And when you do suspect it, it's as tough to do. Don't be afraid to confront them about it. Don't do it condescending. Show them that you care and that you care that they have this problem. That you are there for them and that you're not going to judge them. One of the things I hear from addicts a lot is, my family judges me. They judge me for what I've done. So all that does is make me feel more down about myself, so I go get more product to forget about how down they are on me. You need to encourage them. You need to encourage them to get help. You need to encourage them to seek treatment. You need to encourage family members in this community, of your friends and your neighbors, that if they have somebody with an opiate problem or a narcotic problem, not to be down on them. Again, this stuff has such a hold on them that they're willing to try to cheat death to get it. We need to help these people. We need to help them go to medical facilities. We need to help them with family counseling. We need to encourage them to go to those places. Things to look for in your own house, to think that you might think somebody may be using narcotics. Especially heroin. Most people think it's by needle only. It usually doesn't start out with a needle because needles are taboo. How many people woke up this morning and say, I want to stick a needle in my arm? Not very many. Not very many that are opiate addicts ever thought that they were going to do that. Okay? The heroin and opiates now are so strong that they sniff them, they smoke them, chase the dragon, they burn it on a foil, and they suck the fumes out, and then that gets them addicted. Well, one of the things with opiate is always getting that initial feeling back, that initial euphoria on feeling that again. Well, snorting it isn't getting it into my system fast enough, or smoking it isn't, so they hit the needle. That's how it starts. They don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to go stick a needle in my arm full of heroin. So look for syringes. Look for spoons that are burnt on the back or show carbon on them. Glass pipes or straws. Aluminum foil. Look for little folded pieces of paper. You might look at that and say, that's just a piece of paper and not think twice about it. But if it's full, if there's a little piece of paper and it's got like 10 folds in it, or it's been folded up and you can see it's been folded up, chances are it had drugs in it. Corners of plastic bags. Little tiny plastic baggies. You're not buying them to put their sinkers in. Look for things like that. Those are signs that you can look for around your house or on your business. If you wonder, are people using my business to get high in? Your restrooms, look in your restrooms, see if those type things are there. People that don't smoke have several lighters on them. You know they don't smoke. Why they got all these lighters on them? Chances are they got the lighters on them because they're cooking down some type of drug. Little mini torches. How else can you help? 30-day treatment centers. We need long-term treatment. Opiates are very hard drugs to get off.
Real consequences, not treatments.
You need both.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no, and I spoke about that. Police are arresting people, and there's consequences, but we need treatment also.
Not the arrest, trust me, I just had to spend 3 months with all these junkies in jail, and it's a joke to them. Oh, I can get out and go through treatment. I go to a rehab program, I'm done. Out in 30 days and back doing the same shit over and over.
And
It's
that's
disgusting.
and that's why I said it's not these short-term. If somebody really wants it clean, they're not going to do it in 30 days. I agree with you, and that's why we use the U.S. Attorney's Office when we can to meet the threshold to get them long sentences. Okay. There's definitely.
You want to teach the young kids in grade schools not to do stuff like this.
Not to do
Show
stuff.
them what's going to happen. Let them see, oh, that one was put away for 10 years because they're wrong, or was put away for doing that, or whatever it is. Let these young kids see what's going on and see what happens when you do that stuff. Yes.
I don't disagree. Okay, but we still have the addicts out there that we got to treat.
I know there's protocol, and I know there's certain protocols that you got to take before you can bust a house or bust a person. But maybe the protocol needs to be changed a little bit.
We have what we call the Constitution, which I firmly believe in. Okay, we don't want, and as a police officer, I don't want to just walk into people's homes. Okay, if they're committing a crime, I want to go to their home. But this is one of the few nations in the world where police just don't come in and do what they want to. Okay, I don't care how bad TV says we do, we don't. Okay?
Folks, let's let the chief wrap it up, and then I promise we're going to give people on the floor an opportunity to talk.
So as I was getting back, we need long-term treatment centers, not these 30-day things that, as the gentleman said, are a joke. There's a huge shortage of treatment facilities in this state. And then we have insurance companies, and there was just an article in the paper about, he was sentenced to it, but his insurance only paid for it for 19 days, so he walked out at day 19. He's right back on the street doing what he was doing. We need long-term treatment. We need insurance companies for long-term. And here's the biggest thing you need to do. You need to put pressure on our state and federal politicians to put pressure on who helped facilitate this situation. Okay. Drug companies make billions of dollars off hydrocodone and OxyContin, and I'm not saying they're the only thing behind this, but they made lots of money off that. So let's have these companies help pay for treatment or develop drugs that are non-addicting, because they can do it. Let's make them pay for a lot of the treatment facilities. And to wrap this up, I'm going to say the 3 things again that's going to need to take. It's going to take arresting. It's going to be educating our youth not to get involved in this stuff. And there needs to be treatment facilities. It's a 3-fold project. If any one of those fail, the system's going to fail us all. So if you hear it, see it, report it. Thank you for your time.
Raise your hand. I'll be happy to bring the microphone to you, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions.
Thank you. I'd like to ask 2 questions, if I may. First off, with all the heroin and meth that's going around, these are needle drugs. Does anyone know, is there any data if diseases like HIV and hepatitis C are on the rise with these drugs? Globally, obviously.
That'd be a great question for the Orange County Department of Health. Because hepatitis C, if they're diagnosed in rehab, public health is made aware when a new hepatitis C diagnosis is made. So I bet, I'm sure that they could provide you that data. That's a really good question. I don't know the answer, but I think they'd be a good source for you to get. I have a question. Gentleman that was talking about, and Chief's comment about needing more treatment beds. which is probably true, but you have to keep in mind that a lot of these people that are in rehab don't really want to be there. They manipulate, they play along with the game, but their significant other, their best bud, is smuggling drugs in and they're using them. They get busted in rehab and they get kicked out and they go back on the street and continue doing what they're doing. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's something that a lot of people, this is a learning forum, arena here. It is a real problem.
I'm talking mainly to the people that have been speaking about putting people in prison for longer time because of drugs. 1/3 of American families are affected by some kind of drug abuse. Are we going to put 1/3 of our country in prison? $1 trillion has been spent on war on drugs, and it's gotten absolutely nowhere. They're worse now than they ever were. That's not the answer. What you people have been talking about tonight is the answer. We need treatment. We need education. We need to have places where people can go, and when they go there and they go for help, they don't get sent away and say, come back in 25 days or come back next week, or we can't get you in right now. We need the treatment that's going to get you in. You got a problem. If I go in with, I've got some kind of a disease and I go in, they take me in right away. They give me medicine, they put me in a hospital, they give me food, they treat me, they test me. If I go in with an addiction, with a drug, alcohol or drug addiction, they say, oh, well, we can't do anything right now, you have to come back. What happens? That person goes right back out and starts using again. I want to say that I'm in long-term recovery myself. I've been sober since 2001. I fought to get clean and sober for 31 years. If you'd have put me in prison, I'd have found the drugs in prison, and when I got out, I'd have continued using. It would not stop me from using, because I wasn't a bad person trying to become a good person. I was a sick person, a diseased person, trying to get well. And that's what we need to keep our focus on, is helping these people to get well and helping them to find a way to get better.
Who has been the recipient of the Boys and Girls Club activities. She loves it. It makes a difference in her life. And I just hope and pray that we are able to get the funds that you need to finish this job and open it up to every young person.
Where's Deborah? Deborah, stand. Just want to point out, Deborah is the Chief Professional Officer of the Boys and Girls Club. Good job, Deborah.
It's my understanding that in Gloucester, Massachusetts, there was a severe heroin problem, and the chief of police and the police department just realized that this war on drugs wasn't working. So apparently, I don't know the details of it, but they tried to decriminalize heroin use by offering, if somebody was sincerely wanted to get off heroin, that they would not charge them for any crime, and that they would enter a treatment program. The only thing is, it worked apparently, from what my understanding was, but they had to have a lot of treatment facilities to make this work.
Chief,
So,
you want to take that one, Chief?
I'm going to take that, actually. Met Chief Campbell. Spent about 3 hours with him about a month ago, maybe a little less than that. They didn't decriminalize the drugs. What they did is they saw people who were hurting. People like your neighbors or you, who aren't bad people, but this drug has a hold on them. Now, if this person was to walk in off the street, and even if he had heroin on him and set it down and say, I want help. I'm committed, I need help, willing to commit myself to a long-term treatment facility. That department would not arrest them for the opiate, okay? And they would help find them a treatment facility. At first, they got a lot of no's. No, we're not taking them. No, we're not taking them. They would have officers call all night long until a treatment facility took them. Finally, they'd say, all right, we got your bed just to get the hell away from us. The benefit they had is that state had a lot of treatment facilities. It's now opened up where he's got other states heard of his program. They're saying, send them to us. Okay? Again, treatment facilities. Now, if the person was a dealer, if this was a person on their radar that was selling opiates, not the little dealer who's buying a gram and cutting it down to a half a gram to support his $10 or $20 habit every couple hours. Real dealers, like the ones that I talked about earlier, they don't get that deal. They're going to jail. They're going to get that deal. But the true addict, the true person who really has an addiction and really wants help, they're willing to forgive that little petty arrest of the heroin and get them into long-term treatment facilities. Now, this isn't the person they stop on the street and, oh, you caught me with heroin, so I want to go to a facility.
One of the things I think that isn't as widely known as it should be is that the courts, both the federal and the state courts, have been deeply involved in getting people into rehab for a long time. The federal court where I work in Syracuse, and there's one in Syracuse, and one in Albany, Binghamton, Plattsburgh. If you're charged with a federal crime, even if it's not a drug crime, you're going to be interviewed by the U.S. Probation Department, and they're going to look into your past, and they're going to talk to you. And if you've got a drug problem, you're not only going to be offered treatment, it's going to be mandated. Okay, you're in the federal court system, whether you're there for a drug crime or some other crime. The federal judges and the U.S. Probation Department are going to require you to get drug treatment. And I can tell you that that's also often a part of the sentencing scheme as well. If someone, whether they're charged with or convicted of bank robbery or defrauding someone, if they get a jail sentence, at the end there's going to be a sentence of supervised release. And they're going to be, if they have a drug addiction, they're going to be required to get treatment. Payment is often a problem, and that's been talked about tonight. And I think that is an unsolved issue for our society, something we're going to have to address going forward here, because there's lots of people that need help, and there's not enough money or enough facilities for it. And that is, you've identified a very important problem here tonight. I can also tell you, and those of you that work in this field on a daily basis or have somebody that's gone through rehab will tell you that is not an easy road, and people relapse. It often doesn't work the first time or the second time or the third time. And again, I work in a court system where the judges, if there are failures to do that, there are consequences. But sometimes people need that incentive. Not everybody does. Some people reach a point in their life where it becomes, as been talked about tonight, where it's a matter of life and death, and they decide to choose life. But often people are caught up in this stuff, and they need some type of an outer intervention, whether it's a family member or members of the community or the court system. But that does happen in the courts, and talk about consequences. People are required to go to rehab. Now, sometimes the fact that they're ordered to go to rehab isn't the last thing. It's if you're ordered to do something and you don't do it for your own personal motivation, it doesn't always work. But sometimes people need the incentive of consequences, and if you're in the court system, it's there on a very frequent basis.
And I apologize if I get a little emotional, but he's been crying out for help for about the last 3 months. And I've knocked my head up against the wall to get my child some help. We brought him to Canton Potsdam, tried to get him into detox. They ended up discharging him with the statement, he doesn't fit the criteria to be entitled to a bed. We took him home, he detoxed himself for a week, we got him into outpatient, he couldn't handle it, he left. 3 weeks later, he comes crying to me, begging me to come home from work, he needs somebody to talk to. I come home from work, he begs me to give him some help. And I'm not lying, we have called every drug rehab in this state just about. We found one that would take him, Conifer Park in Schenectady. But, okay, they approved him. He went there Monday. I I get a call 2 hours before I come here, his insurance will pay for no more. He is coming home tomorrow via text, and I don't know what to do with him anymore. He, you know, his case manager told me he does not fit the criteria to be entitled to a higher standard of care. How do they know what he's entitled to? They're not the one that is picking my son up off the floor when he can't lift his head up off the ground. They're not the one who's sitting up all night making sure my son's still breathing. They're not the one who watches my son walk into walls and doors and not even know what he's doing. How can they feel that my son's not entitled to it? I don't get it. I don't know who I can talk to.
I would be willing to talk to you. I would be willing to talk to you afterwards to see if I can help in any way. I'm the director of an adolescent program, but I do know of a lot of programs. And the issue is much like Chief LeGreg said. The issue is with the insurance company. It's with payment. Treatment programs are struggling to keep their doors open because the insurance companies are refusing to pay. And it's creating this terrible situation. But they're definitely keep working, and I'm more than willing to talk to you as soon as we're done and see if I can help you.
Thank you.
Law enforcement support, interdiction of narcotics. On the federal level, since 9/11, at the physical border crossings that we have, we've increased personnel probably by tenfold. Port of Massena used to have 12 people. They had over 60 at one point in time. When they needed additional dog teams to interdict narcotics, they had one at the time. They never increased or asked for additional manpower to be able to do this. I don't know why. We have additional personnel hired constantly, but they never increased the amount of narcotic detector dogs to be able to assist at the border crossings. The state police, they have a canine program, very effective, but yet for over 40 years, as we know in law enforcement, you need a DEA license to be able to obtain narcotics, to be able to train your dogs with. They have yet to be, they have not obtained a DEA license yet to be able to obtain these substances that they need because of management to be able to do this properly. Now, I know we have an increase in Border Patrol dog teams in the area. They're supposed to be doing work with illegal aliens. They cover in between the border crossings. So if you were to talk to Homeland Security and say, well, we need more dog teams, they say, well, we have all these Border Patrol guys. Well, they cover everything else. They don't cover the actual physical crossings. And I know in Massena, I may be wrong on this, but we used to have 2 dog teams, and I think we're down to 1 now. It just seems like some of the resources have kind of gone away, even though we're not talking about all the avenues. I know narcotics are coming up in New York City, but when you're so close to the international border, and we have problems with our neighbors to the east of us, which we seem to take a blind eye to and do not address. So that's all I want to say about that.
I think a big issue we're not discussing is also that gangs have moved into the area. I don't know how many of you realize that there's gang activity also. I'm very disappointed with the Massena Police Department because not once but twice I've been told to turn a blind eye. I had a gang-related drug dealer move into our apartment building. Perfect place, front door, back door. Could go in and out perfectly. Until they started flipping out, banging on the walls, because apparently the girlfriend lost the drugs. But here we are watching all these people that I would watch out my window. I watch every day drugs being dealt on the sidewalk. They throw it out of the vehicles and people wait for it to drop. I watch this every day. But then when they moved into our apartment building, had to contact the landlord to get them out. Get the police there. And the guy said, take off your shoes. This is my home. Talk to the police with total disrespect, which that is what has happened in this community. Nobody's scared of the cops. Nobody's scared of you guys. That's where you gotta give the respect of these people. The guy literally trash talked the police. But what bugged me the most is my boyfriend and I stood there and talked to a member of your police department. And I was asked, do I have an air conditioner? Yes, I do. Turn it on, close your blinds. That is no way to get any kind of response to something so, I mean, this guy was literally flipping out. Drug dealers coming in and out. Massena Police Department has done nothing that I have seen for this community. They're spray painting everywhere, they're dealing drugs everywhere, they're robbing houses. Now we're having guns show up that are filed off. I mean, really, what are you guys going to do about this?
I'm going to take this, Chief, if you don't mind. I understand your frustration. But if you look, I understand, and I know the Chief's going to want to talk to you to get some of those specifics. And I'm not downplaying what you're saying, but to make the general statement that the police department's doing nothing is not true.
It feels that way.
I understand. But, you know, it's evidenced by the number of sheer volume of arrests and numbers that are going through that agency, you know, with limited resources. So I encourage you to talk to the Chief, try to get the specifics, and he'll get on top of that. But, you know, the general blank statement I don't think is fair.
I never heard this word come from the Massena Police Department that we have something to be able to contribute to. People are scared to report all this stuff too, because of the repercussions.
Understood. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. So I do appreciate it.
They're doing a lot of work. And on the reverse side, the pressure on these guys is tremendous. And they deal with disrespect, and their hands are tied by the law. People don't understand a cop can just do what he wants. He is tied by the law. He has to respond according to the law. And the moment he doesn't, he's the one that's shot at, he's the one that's criticized. It's easy to say they're not doing anything. Man, I submit to you, they're doing a lot, and the pressure's tremendous. And we as a community can help them by reporting crime. We can help them take pictures and help them get evidence. And then they have the tools. So if we just complain and don't give them the tools, then we can criticize, but you're not in their shoes every day. These men work hard, and they put their life on the line.
Folks, I'm seeing a lot of hands. I'm going to get to you, but I just want to kind of work the room so everybody gets a shot here. Far away.
I look around here. I grew up in this town. It was a totally different town I grew up in. I'm hearing a lot of statements. I'm not hearing a lot of questions right now. I look around here, and I look, and it's mostly retired people. Where's the young kids? Where's the youth? Where's the people my age?
Earlier when the chief was speaking, he was saying how they're using their benefit cards to get drugs. I would like to see, you know, steps being made, and I know there are some being made where they are going to try to do drug testing for people getting benefits. You know, and if they are test positive, they don't get their benefits. Why don't we use those benefits to put them into treatment instead of just putting it solely on to the insurance companies that are saying, no, let's use that money somewhere where it's useful instead of giving it to them to trade so that they can get their drugs.
This is in response to the woman who spoke about the addicts in detox who don't want to be there. I totally agree with you. This is a huge problem, but we are ignoring the addicts who do desperately want and need treatment, who are waiting 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 weeks to get into a treatment facility. And what are they doing in the meantime? They are using, they are continuing to use, because when they finally get the call that tomorrow you will have a bed, they need to be sick, because if they are not sick, if they are not full of a drug, they will not be accepted into detox. So they continue to use when they desperately want to get clean. We are doing this to our children. And I don't understand why there are not more beds for the people who truly want and need treatment.
I've been a citizen of this community since 2003. I moved to come out of town. 2005, I joined the Neighborhood Watch. And I don't go to the meetings a lot, but I do Neighborhood Watch. And it's our jobs, each and every one of us citizens, we are numbers. Numbers will overcome any day. If we stick together as a group, they can't win. You see something, you say something. If you see something, I'll tell you myself, I've been out many a night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, writing down VIN numbers, plate numbers, because I'm watching drug deals going down inside of gas stations. And I stay in the background, nobody sees me. I do that, and I turn it over to the proper authorities. Each and every person in this room would take the initiative just to do the same thing without putting themselves at risk. That'd be a big help, but there's power in numbers, and we have the numbers. We outnumber all these drug dealers and their people. I don't know how many to one, but a lot. And I'm proud to say that I'll continue doing everything I can for as long as I can. Thank you.
Okay, my question is, I lost my son a year and a half ago to a heroin overdose. My son was a good boy. He served in the military. He did his time in Iraq. And when he passed with a heroin overdose, my family was told that there's no criminal investigation being done because he was alone. But yet, statistically, they're not alone when they're shooting up with heroin. And I guess I don't understand how you validate if somebody was alone and they died, there's going to be an investigation. So why was there not one done when my son passed? Because it was of heroin?
I can't answer for her. I don't know where the death took place.
Massena.
We do investigate deaths. Okay.
We were told that there would not be a criminal investigation done because he was found alone.
I guess I don't understand. I don't know who told you that. Every time there's a death, not in the presence of a doctor, a death investigation is conducted. Okay? So of what the cause of death is. Okay? I'm only assuming this because I don't know who you are or what the circumstances are. I'm assuming the death investigation was conducted and the cause of death was a heroin overdose, drug overdose. Now, if you're asking where he got the drugs, is that what you're wondering, where the investigation is?
No, I'm just wondering where does it fall? Should it be a criminal investigation, or are you saying that it's not a criminal investigation?
It's a death investigation. If somebody chooses, and I want to be careful how I word this because I have a lot of compassion for this issue. Okay? If somebody takes something to themselves and they die, okay, it's probably an accidental overdose. I don't think they purposely did that to themselves with the intentions of dying. Okay? But if it is an accidental overdose, that's not a crime for that person to do that. I can't prosecute the person. Okay? Now, where did he get the stuff? I'd love to know where he got the stuff. Some places have prosecuted people. If you could prove the dealer that gave the heroin to him, they'll prosecute it. Okay? This state currently does not have that. Okay?
Chief, can I talk with you for a second?
Sure.
Federal government does. Before I came up here today, I had a series of meetings with the United States Attorney and other Justice Department officials around the country. Anybody remember a basketball player that died of a heroin overdose in the mid-1980s, Len Bias? Remember that? Cocaine overdose. It was in 1986, I think it was. Right after that happened, Congress held a series of hearings and passed an enhanced sentencing provision to the basic federal drug distribution statute, which is Title 21 United States Code Section 841A1. That makes it a federal crime to distribute drugs. New York State has a similar statute, criminal sale. which has the same definition as it does federally. In 1986, in the wake of Len Bias's death, Congress passed an enhanced sentencing provision that provides that if a person or persons who trafficked that drug that resulted in the death by overdose to that individual, they can face up to a mandatory minimum of 20-year sentence. Now, these cases are very difficult to bring, and the law has not been used much around the country. But we're carefully considering this in the Northern District of New York, and when these cases happen, if they are investigated as crime scenes, and that's a very intensive thing, if these cases are investigated as homicides, and if individuals can be found and evidence can be gathered that they're responsible for providing the drug that resulted in the overdose, and if they're prosecuted in federal court, they can face a mandatory minimum 20-year sentence. Now, the federal courts are far away. Federal officials are not far away. You have Homeland Security investigations, DEA. There's not a lot of these federal agents. They're up here, but they do work in close contact with local authorities. And when they bring us those cases, we're going to look at them very carefully. But if we can prosecute, we will prosecute those cases. So the answer to your question is, it's very difficult, and New York State doesn't have good laws that can be used on it. There are some bills before the state legislature right now to provide for enhanced penalties for overdose deaths where the person that dispensed the drugs have been identified and investigated. There were bills that are currently in the New York State Senate. They have not been passed by the Assembly yet, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Unfortunately, under New York State law, and I was a New York State prosecutor for 10 years before I became a federal prosecutor, prosecutors and police are left with statutes like criminally negligent homicide, which is an offense for which the penalties, it's a felony and it's a homicide case, but the penalties are much less than murder and so on. So the answer to your question is, these cases can be prosecuted. They're very difficult. They require a lot of investigation, and I think that in the future, if we work together, we may be able to bring cases against some of these people.
What they did, because crime was so high there, including the drug crimes back then, what they did is a lot of the senior citizens volunteered to be the eyes and the ears of law enforcement. What they did was not put themselves at risk, but they went as partners. My dad and his friend would go out a couple times a month, take their turn, ride around a certain district. The police station gave them a radio for the car that they just slipped in there temporarily. And what they did is they called in anything suspicious. That helped the police department because they were able to have the eyes and ears in more places. Okay? He might have done maybe a 6 or 8 block radius, and other people were doing the same thing. So the result was that they were now catching criminals who would not have been caught without a neighborhood watch, an active drive-by neighborhood watch.
Something I'd like to address that is the sheriff's office had that, as I remember, the sheriff's civil patrol. And unfortunately, one of those volunteers passed away while he was struck and hit by a car. And here's the bad part. The responsibility was put on the municipality. They had to pay an extremely large amount of money. Actually, they had to pay his widow what police officer wages were, because that's what he was doing. He was acting for many, many years. So that's one of the problems that maybe Florida doesn't have that, but that New York has with programs like that, and why we don't have those programs. It's a huge responsibility for the municipality. So I love the idea of it, but that's one of the roadblocks. Talk to your state senators again. Get these laws passed that if that's to happen, he's volunteer his time, that they don't have to pay out. They had to pay police officer wages to his widow for, I can't remember how many years it was millions of dollars.
Of course, I'm trying to get around to everybody, so be patient with me.
Hey, thank you. Number one, I'm very impressed with the efforts of the community to work together. That's huge. Number two, I've been in recovery since November 3rd, 1986. I don't want to ruffle any sort of religious thing here, but That was by the grace of God, not me. I have plenty of willpower. I don't have any willpower. But anyways, there's a lot of things I'd love to talk about. But one, I was a drug counselor for a couple of years. And one thing that frustrated the living devil out of me was that I would spend at least half of my day doing paperwork for New York State that I guarantee you is never looked at except by Albany to make sure it was filled out right. And if it wasn't filled out right, this agency that I worked for, which was underfunded to begin with, would get dinged on how much money they got from Albany the next year. It's absolutely insane. The same thing happened with our educational system. It's been overregulated. I can't imagine what you guys go through. The overregulation wastes so much manpower. The second thing, treatment facilities. Yeah, we need a lot more. The one I was in was a halfway house in Canton, and 90% of our intakes were either court-ordered or the person was given a choice. You go to rehab or you go to prison. So where are they going to go? And that's okay, because we still had great success, in my opinion, because it's not always a one-shot deal. But that does, that subject was touched on, and I just wanted to share that yeah, there's a lot of people going through rehabs and halfway houses who don't necessarily want to go, but you need to know that sometimes it still works. Well, I'm going to be quiet so people can talk. But anyway, there's a lot to talk about.
Fortunately, he's turned his life around. It's been about 2 years now. He's been clean, and his mother now is here. Unfortunately, in the last probably 4 years, he's had 4 friends that have died from heroin overdose. And one of the times, probably about a year ago, we got a call about 11 o'clock at night, and he said this person had died. My wife and I immediately went to the Massena hospital. He just came in with the ambulance, and we were the only parents there. Probably about 15 or 20 of his friends showed up as the word got around. But it was sad that there was no other parents involved. So I can only give you my experiences as a stepdad, what he had to go through when he was living in our house, dealing. He went to rehab, detox many times. Eventually got things straightened out about the 4th time he went through the rehab. But the biggest thing he tells me is, one, there's nothing to do in Massena to keep the young men active, just playing games or something for entertainment, because they're totally bored to death. And the other thing is the mistrust of the police department. And probably about 10 years ago, there was started out small, but it got ballooned fast. The house that my stepdaughter was living in was owned by a well-known individual, and his daughter was collecting the rent, but she was a heroin addict. And so she'd want all her rent immediately on the 1st, and she wouldn't give a receipt. Well, she freaked out, got in a big fight, called the police. They had the police come, did a search of the house. While they were searching the house, some marijuana was found, and 4 people there witnessed. The cop picked it up, put it in his pocket, and said, well, I'll keep that for later. So that stuff goes around fast, and it really makes you lose respect of the police department. And one thing I wonder what the requirements are of the state laws to protect us as residents from the police. Like, are they drug tested, are they piss test, or I mean, they're human, but I just wonder if we've got only a certain number of police, are any of them marijuana users or drug users or whatever. I mean, they're gonna turn the eye if their buyer, they aren't gonna turn their buyer in if they're using drugs. They kind of turn the other way, so I just wonder how we're protected.
It's a very fair question. One of the things that I tried in my time as chief when I told people, if what you're saying is accurate and true, I can't fix a problem I don't know about.
Right.
We have a very robust misconduct policy that actually dates back to the time when Charlie Boots was mayor. It was rewritten by our attorney. And if someone brought a citizen complaint to me, or now if they bring it to the chief, there's very specific things that have to happen. And if, when I was chief, didn't follow those, I was committing misconduct and could have lost my job. So if people don't bring those types of complaints to us, we can't fix those problems if we don't know about them. You know, if it happened, I regret it, and I'm sorry, and I take you for your word that you think it happened, but again, we can't fix a problem that we don't know about.